put your hands together for Sicleana McCall.
I'm really, really happy to be here, and I'm so grateful for this opportunity to share a part of my story. I'm always excited to share my story. Sometimes I get super nervous about the delivery, but I'm really happy to hopefully help someone. February 26, 1988 is when I was born, and I was born, I would say, to a very somewhat religious family. My dad's a preacher. My parents have been married for over 40 years now. And in high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. So my dad went into the Navy. I followed him into the Navy. And I would say one of the most sacred experiences that I had was performing colors. Every morning at sunrise and every night at sunset, I would raise and lower the flag to honor our fallen brothers and sisters, and it was just really, really special. I felt just grateful to share that moment, I felt like, with them. And one of my favorite things, I would stand on the top deck, and it would just be me, God, and the stars. It was just really peaceful. And I talked about my religious family, and I should say spiritual now, because we've grown a ton. Addiction was not in my family at all. And I was kind of a rule follower. I was the chaplain's assistant in the Navy. I tried to do the right thing. So even when I was 21, I didn't drink or anything like that. And I got injured in the Navy and was prescribed prescription pills. And at first, I remember trying them or taking them as prescribed. I didn't like it. I didn't like the taste at all. And I would remember just the bitter taste. And eventually, I became extremely, at that time, I would say dependent because of the stigma that's attached to the word addiction. But I was completely addicted to, I was prescribed tons of medications, from Xanax to oxycodone to Ambien, so many different things. And I wasn't familiar with it. And it was like my lifeline. I didn't carry a purse, really, but then I started carrying a purse. My pills would be in my purse, and it became my crutch. And I still functioned, still went to school. I finished a degree in culinary at the Art Institute of Charleston, so I love food, and both my grandparents and my mother, they're cooks, and so I love food, and I love sharing that experience with people. And over time, I didn't know that a part of myself had totally died. And the crazy thing is being nebulous or unaware of a part of death being a part of you. And I always had this interesting experience with death, not being afraid of it. I've had a near-death experience. I've had that for sure. And so, nevertheless, I'm the eldest of three. And my siblings and even my parents, they really look up to me. They trust me. And one of my superpowers is humility. And I learned that when we share our joys, they multiply. And when we share our sorrows, they divide. And so I always felt comfortable with saying, I'm sorry, or this is wrong with me. And it's funny because I have anxiety, but I'm not fearful at all. And I really don't like the center of attention, but certain stories, they need to be told, because I learned that Me Too, hearing that can save a life. And so I took one honest chance, and I tried really hard to get off of medication. I remember being so afraid at times, and I like to be alone. I would crawl in the bed with my mom, and I'd say, Mom, Dad, I'm scared. Scared, not afraid of death, but I was so confused. I had been on an array of different medications. And so nevertheless, two sets of eyes really saved my life. One was a family member. They just stared at me with the most beautiful brown eyes. And it was as if their eyes were saying, I thought you said you loved us. That's not what they said, but that's what it felt like. I thought you loved us. And I was still functioning, still doing everything, but I was completely gone. I don't even remember what I looked like. And I remember another set of eyes, my cat Chance. and he passed away recently, but he would stare at me with the bluest, most topaz eyes, and it was as if he was saying, Tasha, you can do this. I believe in you. I know you're not afraid of sharing your story, and you're going to help so many people. And so I tried really hard, and I was able to get off of the medication on my own. And I shared the story with my family. I was open and with my doctors, and I told them this is going on, and it was hard. Like I've had grief in my life, but this was a different. It was like living death. It's different. I was like living death. I was so sick, and I remember sometimes my dream was to have a cup of coffee, go outside, feel the fresh air on my skin, and eat my favorite foods. I wanted to be strong enough to do that without being dependent on any substances. And so I worked really hard at that, and I was able to get off. And I took a chance on sharing my honest truth, and it's leading to a completely purpose-driven life. I became, like she said, an author recently, and I used to go to Coastal as well, and I'd sit at the beach, and I'd watch these kids come from up north, and it didn't matter if it was cool or not. They just jump into the water and they'd go swim. And that's because they were healthy. They had balance in their lives. They were excited about the little things. And then I saw young children make the conscious decision to stop playing. They didn't feel good. They didn't want to play anymore, or they needed a substance. And so I shared my truth, and with the hopes of helping save someone else's daughter's life, or their son, or their mom, or dad. I'm like, if I could give them a DNA copy, just tell them my story without them having to go through the pain, maybe they might have a better life or a better chance. And so that's what I did. I worked really hard to get off the medication I did, and now I share my truth with the hopes that maybe someone else does not have to go through what I went through. And so that's my story.